Good evening and welcome to Have I Got News For You. My name's Dara, and if you're thinking of watching the last ever episode of Friends, Ross and Rachel get together again, so you can relax now. In the news this week, outside of casting agents in London, 2 actors celebrate getting a part in Mandelson the Musical. And at a fat camp in Essex, people are quick to react after a fitness instructor is spotted with a Mars bar. On Ian Hislop's team tonight is the political editor of the Sunday Express, who recently wrote that in the future, men will spend all their leisure time lounging around, washing down their takeaway curry with a beer while watching videos or playing computer games. Fine. Please welcome Julia Hartley Brewer. And with Paul Merton tonight is an author and broadcaster who says he's fed up of being stopped in the street by people saying, "I like your programmes, Mr. Anderson." It's surprising how popular Thunderbird still is. Please welcome Clive James. Round 1 starts here. Ian and Julia, what's this about?
European elections coming up, and the UK Independence Party is leaping ahead of the Liberal Democrats.
Is she serving tea to old people, is she? Oh, there he is.
Oh, he's too old for her. She likes them much younger than that. Oh, bless. Apparently, Jane Collins is going to support the UK Independence Party, but I think this is because she's heard about an EU directive they're going to bring forward, which is a minimum age for toy boys. Is she going to have a postal vote from her house in France? Or...
Yes. Where does she live in France?
France.
Where does she live in France?
I don't know.
You don't want to narrow it down at all, really, do you? No.
In a house.
Sunday Express, that's near enough.
Shut
France.
Beautiful Saint-Tropez. Do you know what UKIP's actual policies are on Europe?
They talk UKIP.
They do, essentially. That's basically it. How much do you think Jo knows about this?
Not very much. She's never voted.
This is what she said at the press conference.
This is a photo call.
You've just joined a new party. Can you tell us exactly what the UK Independence Party stands for?
No, he can tell you that.
Do you have very real fears over European integration?
Well, she might have to live in England.
No, with regard to Slovakia, have you?
Or is her cleaner going to be sent back home or something? It's a big concern.
What she said with regard to the Slovakians was, what do you say to a Slovakian after you've discussed the weather?
You're making a mistake here in focusing on Joan Collins as the weak point of this new party with relation to ethnic groups, for example. And Robert Kilroy's Silk can take care of all that, surely.
Absolutely.
He has handled it quite comfortably, to be honest. Do you know what constituency he's running in for them?
East Midlands.
You want to see how he's getting on with the locals?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Apparently he's going to knee him in the balls again if he doesn't vote for her.
That would rank as one of the worst last dying moments, wouldn't it? To be comforted by Kilroy Silk as you over the shopping centre.
On the election trail in the East Midlands, the Times spoke of how he went up to voters in the street. He spotted 2 white-haired ladies on a bench. Before waiting for an answer, he hugged and kissed them. They looked at first bewildered, then thrilled. "It's you, isn't it?" the first woman said. Which Kilroy responded, "It's me, my love." He was walking around pretending to be Christ in the middle of the event. Apparently, lady went, "Bring the children to me." Not the dark one. OK. That was him, not me, right? So how has Robert Kilroy Silk responded to allegations of xenophobia?
I spend a lot of time in Europe. I love the Spanish. Don't always trust them, but I do love them.
The idea that other celebrities are backing UKIP?
Is it Keith Chegwin?
Keith Harris. Orville. Is Orville going alone?
No, Orville's strictly Lib Dem. There's a bit of split between the two of them on this. This is the rise and rise of the UK Independence Party, who this week have recruited Joan Collins. With the UKIP creeping up on the Liberal Democrats, Charles Kennedy has been strongly advised to watch Kilroy. Which is presumably the first time anyone's ever said that to anyone, ever. Max Clifford is acting as a consultant for the UKIP. Well, there's room in every party for a silver-haired, publicity-seeking egomaniac. And now they have 2. Paul and Clive, your turn with this.
OK. Fire, obviously.
This has got to do with British art. There was a
Going up in flames.
disaster. A warehouse full of British art was burned down, and there was a fear that one of this woman's works of art had survived. She did this tent. She'd put her heart and soul into it, and she was devastated. And I think many people were. It was a sad loss, except that...
Except that quite funny, really.
Except that many other artists, I noticed, seemed to be quite pleased. The ones who hadn't been collected by Charles Dickens. When you think about it, the actual burning building is itself a work of art. Yeah?
So the arsonist was doing performance art.
I just thought the sight of all those Damien Hirst cow heads going up in flames, it was sort of like French roadblocks, wasn't it? Or foot and mouth all over again. It was really strange.
Wouldn't the shark that's in the full mountain home, wouldn't
That's
just be poached, wouldn't it?
The Chapman brothers, there was a picture there of their hell.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was quite funny that it had burnt.
Did anyone see what the son?
The son tried to recreate it, the tent, but it didn't look anything like it at all.
Well, this is what Tracy Emin's looked like. To recreate it, they went to Millets. The original cost of the tent was £40,000. This is the Sun version, which they made for $39.99. And they're exceptionally proud of. Their ace reporter, Toulouse-Le-Plot. What's the one good thing to have come out of it?
The fire.
The rest of Saatchi's collection apparently has gone up in value immensely.
Ah.
What other art has gone up in value immensely in the last week?
I'm not going to tell you.
It is a picture of Ian Hislop.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, this isn't this eBay thing.
Yes, it is this eBay thing. Last week when featured in the show, the signed photograph of Ian Hislop was going for 99 pence. Closing price at the end of the auction was £113.11.
You notice, though, in even that picture, he's a little bit too short for the photo booth.
But weren't there higher bids?
There were high bids. The bids at one stage reached £10 million. The auction was originally done to raise money for a primary school building, and one poor woman was up all night dealing with fake eBay bids. Apparently she was so annoyed she actually wrote into Have I Got News for You to complain about the show invading her privacy, and I have to say I agree. If you agree with me as well and you want to send her a message of support, her email address is julierose45 at hotmail.com. Yes, the answer is that this is the fire that has destroyed a major part of Charles Saatchi's collection of modern British art. The moment they spotted the flames, security guards followed emergency procedure and smashed a small glass box in the wall. And immediately, half a sparrow of formaldehyde fell out. After reporting the incident, a London Fire Brigade chief said the fire had caused considerable damage, and yet was a brilliant and witty comment on the ephemeral nature of Western materialism conveyed through the striking use of ash and rubble. Round two is a tabloid round. Once again, a selection of recent stories to identify by means of a picture clue. Buzz in as soon as you can identify the story. This is the first picture.
Yeah, we buzz it. It's a Subbuteo streaker, isn't it?
Yes, it is a Subbuteo streaker. Yes, it's the latest edition of Subbuteo range. It was introduced by Subbuteo fan and shop owner Tom Watson. Do you want to see the full Monty view?
Yes, please.
Here we go. And what accessory do you get to go with it?
I think he's already got his accessory.
Oh, do you get a policeman's helmet? Because they always cover them up with the policeman's helmet, don't they?
Not only do you get the policeman's helmet, you get the entire policeman. Yeah.
Hey.
He's not using his helmet. Pulled off by the Rozzers. Yeah.
Is this actually a proper Subbuteo approved?
Because they've stopped making it, haven't they?
They have indeed.
3 or 4 years ago.
This is the only piece of Subbuteo stuff they're still making. Is a naked one, yeah.
What a sad decline.
Yes, I know.
Small boys flicking streakers across the floor.
But they've got to know sometime that naked women come on a wooden base. Point in every boy's life when he finds that out, he's disturbed, but then you move on. You move on with it.
We never had Subbuteo in Australia. We didn't have grown people, I mean, actual
You didn't have any grown people in Australia.
Yeah, playing with these tiny models. You played with these tiny models?
Yes, yeah, well, you're supposed to.
You all did this?
Don't get so smart. You were throwing sticks that came back to you. Don't get so...
Let me revert to my point. We had full-size people playing a full-size game.
We also had the full-size game. We didn't used to play Saboot and go, oh, I dream of a day of grass. Any other footballers in the news this week?
David Beckham.
Yes, very much
That
so.
was a good guess, isn't it?
He didn't want to speak to the Daily Mail or the News of the World, I think.
Yes, and most of the other publications in the country. Yeah.
Well, he just texted them, did he?
Didn't David Beckham also win an award this week? He won Black Sports Personality of the Year award.
He won Black Role Model of the Year.
Role Model, right,
rather than Black
From-
Sports
yeah,
Personality. He was eliminated from Black Sports Personality of the Year for what I would regard as obvious reasons. He might be Irishman of the Year next year, it's equally likely. Only if he up in the field when he's playing for England. OK, sorry, I should fight that sort of instinct. I'm living here now, I'm assimilated. Chim chim chiroo. Yes, this is the latest addition to the Subbuteo range of table football figures, namely a streaker. The streaker works on the same principles as all the other Subbuteo players, although it does take a few extra flicks just to get him ready for action. Also this week, David Beckham criticised the press for their coverage of his alleged affairs and announced he wouldn't speak to the News of the World and the Daily Mail, and Sky News and Sky Sports and the BBC and ITV. So look out for that big exclusive for next week's Exchange and Mart. Next picture, please.
This is about invigilating exams.
Indeed it is.
No, this is a Subbuteo factory. They're making the little streakers. He's at the back saying a little bit more on the knob, Maureen.
Yes, it is indeed invigilators. Where did the story appear?
It was earlier this week. Invigilators get very bored, so they come up with ways of trying to kill the time. Apparently they have competitions between them to try and hand out more paper than each other. They're very bored.
Other games they play are Stand By You. Do you know what Stand By You is?
They stand by the ugliest person in the room.
Essentially, yes. And they play chicken.
Invigilator chicken.
Invigilator chicken.
Always played it every chance I got.
Yeah.
It's up there with Subbuteo.
They walk down the aisles until someone wavers.
Yes. Yeah. They
And
walk
veers off.
Yeah. It's fantastic. Yes, this is the revelation of the games teachers play while invigilating exams. One of the games is called Chicken, in which, according to The Sun, two invigilators walk towards each other from opposite ends of a narrow aisle. The first one to dodge into another aisle is the loser. Although, in a wider sense, they're both losers. Let's see the next picture. Paul and Clive.
Ah, pigeons.
Yes.
Pigeons used in the Cold War to bomb enemies. Are they wearing flying helmets? They are.
They are? Of course they are.
Don't do, will you?
And why are the pigeons bombing Brighton? Yeah. What's going on? This was The Sun, was it?
It was The Sun,
It's almost like you can't believe what you read.
Whose brainchild was this pigeon attack?
Was it Bernard Matthews?
It actually was. It was the head of the Air Ministry pigeon section. Called
Is it a pigeon? Is it a pigeon that's head of the pigeon section? All the pigeon. Does he understand, speaks the same language?
the pigeon with one eye.
Yeah.
Who wishes he was still out there. Yeah. By God, war, how I love it so. No, it was a Wing Commander William Rayner.
He wouldn't be a wing commander.
And do you know how the birds were going to find their targets?
They were all male birds, and the female bird had been taken to the target. That's the way it worked.
Well, why didn't they just send the biological thing with the female bird in the first place?
I don't know. My suggestion was, in fact, fictitious.
Yes, this is the secret MI5 plot to recruit and train pigeons to bomb foreign states. Wing Commander William Rayner was head of the MI5's pigeon section in World War II. According to The Independent, he had many daring schemes for deployment of pigeons in warfare, including floating pigeons over enemy lines using hot air balloons. He hadn't quite grasped the potential of the pigeon there, had he? Next picture, please. Paul and Clive.
Ah, it's very easy, this one. This is the controversial garden at Chelsea Flower Show. The
Yes,
Irish
it is.
guy.
Dermot Gavin.
Dermot. He said he was being sponsored when he wasn't.
He hadn't quite nailed down the whole sponsorship thing. Apparently he was supposed to have all this in place, and Dermot, with a typical Celtic flair, didn't bother his arse. This next-door gardener is also a controversy he's involved with. Do you know the name of his fellow gardener?
Bunny Guinness.
Bunny Guinness, lovely name.
Do you know what it was about?
Size of the wall initially
Yeah.
between the two gardens.
Yeah. You don't get much space at Chelsea, the flower show, do you? It's a tiny little plot.
Do I look interested?
He also feels like Bunny Guinness set him up on Gardener's Question Time.
I don't know why he thought he'd been set up on Gardener's Question Time, that notorious killing ground.
Everyone's a trick question there.
What would you do with a Strapolopoulos this time of year? And they start answering, it says, it doesn't exist.
It is this year's Chelsea Garden Show, which has been much overshadowed by a row between the organisers and TV gardener Dermot Gavin. The winning entry was described as a tranquil Arab Islamic garden until 10,000 US Marines moved in and toppled the gnome. Next picture, please.
Ah. I got one. I got it. This is the very, very first tranche of CDs that were sold to us on the basis that they could last forever and ever and ever. It turns out that's not true. They get rusty and unplayable.
Absolutely. It's a condition known as CD rot. Do you know what the evidence of it is?
They're unplayable.
Are you the science correspondent?
Actually, on this one, I am the science correspondent, and I can tell you confidently that it's a certain element in the glue in the booklet reacts with a certain epoxy resin on the inlet sleeve on the front of the CD package to produce a combination of gas which attacks the surface of the CD and starts to destroy its electronic coding properties, with the result that everything ends up sounding like an early Madonna record, including early Madonna.
Are we still playing?
Yes, this is the bad news for music fans, that all those apparently indestructible CDs we bought in the 80s could be suffering from a condition known as CD rot. Some CDs from the 80s are now impossible to listen to due to a particular phase in the production process which involved each blank CD being coated with the music of Phil Collins. Which means at the end of this round, it is Ian and Julie on 4, but in the lead, Paul and Clive on 7. How do we do that?
I think so.
The next round is the odd one out round. Ian and Julie, your 4 are Adam Faith, Spike Milligan, Benito Mussolini and Mel Blanc.
Mel Blanc died recently. He was the voice of Bugs Bunny.
Yes, indeed he was.
Spike Milligan just had his headstone put in place. It's in Gaelic, but it says something like, I told you I was ill. Famous last words.
Because Adam Faith, well, he had very famous last words. He died in a hotel room in peculiar circumstances.
No, you're in the hole now. Dig your way out.
That's what he said.
Mel Blanc, he was the voice of all the Warner Bros. Cartoons. He said, surely it must sound his tombstone, that's all, folks.
Yes, he does.
It does.
Yeah.
And Spike Milligan was, I think, I told you I was ill. Mussolini was last words were, you'll never get me on that lamppost.
He's really got one out because he hasn't got any last words.
Yeah.
English.
He hasn't got anything written on his tombstone.
Mussolini?
Yeah.
It's not the right answer,
Adam
I'm
Faith
afraid.
was one
Yeah,
out. Because he said his last words rather than
not
on his
the
tombstone.
You both actually decided to say exactly the same answer at the same time, and it was the right answer. So grand applause to both of you. Yes, the answer is they all wrote their own epitaphs, except Adam Faith, who's more remembered for his famous last words, which were, Channel 5 is all shit, isn't it? Christ, the crap they put on there, it's a waste of space. Mussolini did write his own epitaph. Any idea what it is?
I'm hanging on a lamppost at the corner of the until a certain little lady comes back.
No, it was, here lies one of the most intelligent animals ever to appear on the surface of the earth. And how does the family name live on in politics now?
His granddaughter is an MP or politician in the Italian government.
Alessandra Mussolini is her name. She was described by The Independent as having peroxide blonde hair, a pornographic mouth, startling eye makeup, and just the merest suggestion of a skirt. She's kind of like an Italian Anne Widdecombe. Mel Blanc's epitaph?
That's all, folks.
That's all, folks.
That's all, folks. And which characters did he provide the voice for?
Ronald Reagan, he did.
Yeah.
Tweety Pie.
George Bush.
Julia.
Pepe Le Pew, Barney
Le Pew.
Rubble, Yosemite Sam, and during the 80s he did Jerry Adams and Martin McGuinness. Spike Milligan's epitaph was?
It's in Gaelic.
It is in Gaelic, or Irish, as we call it at home. It is... we don't know why you call it Gaelic. We're confused about that. It's Dúirt mé leat go raibh mé broite.
It's not as catchy, though, is it?
Well, I think it is. The answer is they all wrote their own epitaph except for Adam Faith, whose last words don't appear in his gravestone. In 1945, Mussolini's body was strung up in front of a petrol station in Milan and later buried beneath the words, "Here lies one of the most intelligent animals ever to appear on the surface of the earth," which was an improvement on diesel, 39 pence a litre. Mussolini's granddaughter Alessandra is still a force in Italian politics. According to The Independent, there is no reason why a politician should not look like a porn star. Which is good news for Robert Kilroy Silk. Paul and Clive, your 4 are a mountain bike, a pretzel, a Segway, and Barney the dog.
I think these are all obstacles that George Bush has encountered at one point in his life. He did fall off a bike last weekend, didn't he?
He did indeed.
And, of course, he did famously choke on a pretzel. He couldn't understand. It wasn't round, it wasn't square. It's a mixture between the two. He must have choked on the dog. He must have... Sort of... The Segway's the odd one out, because he's never been photographed with that. So he must have been he must have been brought to his knees by the other 3 objects.
You're very, very close, but it's not the right answer, I'm afraid.
Ah.
He's fallen off all of the 3 of them except the pretzel, which he choked on.
He didn't fall off the dog, surely. God almighty. The dog's the only one out, then.
OK, the answers have all been the cause of an injury to George Bush, whereas George has been the cause of an injury to Barney the dog.
Ah. He thought he was a whoopee dog, and he sat on it, expecting the usual noise, but it didn't whoopee.
In September last year, Bush dropped Barney head first onto the hot Texan tarmac as he boarded Air Force One.
Was he taking it as hand luggage?
How did the Segway injure the president?
Did he try it out?
Yes. But,
Oh, he did outside.
Photo op.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, there was photo op.
anything remarkable about falling off a Segway?
It's meant to be a non-falling-off machine. Almost impossible to fall off it.
Unless you're an idiot.
Yes. Its creator, Dean Kamen, claims it's almost impossible to do so because there's a gyroscope in the actual machine.
Yeah.
Why did Bush manage to do it?
He's an idiot. He's got an anti-gyroscope in his brain.
No, he didn't turn it on. The answer is they have all been the cause of an injury to George Bush, except for Barney the dog. This week, George Bush fell off his mountain bike at his Texas ranch, grazing his face and hands. When aides told him his only problem was a few abrasions, the president instantly replied, "OK, let's bomb abrasion." Since its invention, the Segway has received a number of top-level endorsements. The Wall Street Journal said, "The Segway is great fun to ride." Fortune magazine said, "The Segway is incredibly stable." And George Bush said, which means at the end of this round, it's Ian and Julie on 5 points, Paul and Clive on 10. And so we move to the missing words round, featuring this week's guest publication, Call Centre Europe, for UK call centre professionals. Price, 65 rupees. You're on with Poiwar erupts after what?
Bun fight.
After Joan Bakewell and Donna Tartt have argument at party about Sam Shepard.
No, the answer is bully boy tactics. This is the famous pork pie making town of Melton Mowbray, which is trying to stop pork pies made in other parts of the country from carrying its name. The move was opposed by a major food firm formerly run by one of Tony Blair's top advisors, Labour peer Chris Haskins. He told one meeting, after Melton Mowbray pork pies, what's next? Cornish pasties, Yorkshire puddings, Cumberland sausages and Bakewell tarts. To which John Prescott replied, "Oh, go on then, you've twisted my arm." Next, What optional on Super Plus headset?
Politeness.
Head.
Speaking English.
The answer is leatherette ear cushions. Next. What sucked up by Hoover?
Lonely bachelor.
The answer is
Damn.
Damn sucked up by Hoover. Damn, comma, sucked up by Hoover. The answer is Houdini hamster. This is Rusher the hamster who has accidentally sucked up his owner's vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, right.
A vacuum cleaner and a hamster. Two casualty department legends for the price of one. Next, gondoliers accused of what?
Spreading Venetian disease.
Gondoliers accused of being silly punts.
They damaged their own gondolas. They've cut the prows off, a lot of them.
Absolutely. How would you describe such an act?
Vandalism.
Sacrilege.
Barbarism.
Barbarism.
Gondolas are now being adapted to fit under the bridges of Venice because global warming has raised water levels. More worryingly, it's also melted the cornettos. And finally, Dave Hill has his what moment?
Ah, this must be a Joe Moore moment.
It is absolutely right. The answer is
Unheard
Joe
of.
Moore. It's exactly Joe Moore moment. Tony Blair's new spin doctor Dave Hill, who caused outrage by suggesting the collapse of the roof of a Paris airport was a good chance to undermine the French Olympic bid. David Hill insisted it was a flippant aside that was not designed to be serious or to cause offence. Nice use of the Ron Atkinson defence there. So the final score at the end of the show, Ian and Julie have 7 points, but the winners are Paul and Clive with 13.
Well done.
On which note, we say thank you to our panellists, Ian Hislop and Julia Hartley Brewer, Paul Merton and Clive James. And I leave you with news that at Westminster, Tony Blair denies he has any plans to scale down the fire service. In Newcastle, Labour launched their election campaign with the slogan, Britain is working. And as filming begins on the new series of Doctor Who, early indications suggest the costume designs will exceed all expectations. Good night.